just like many services, continue over time. But one of the other events that was taking place yesterday was the Vigil on Femicide. And this is the killings that we have seen in the recent past of women. So let's just take a look at what was happening yesterday before we give our comments. All right, and that's Femicide. So that, of course, is reflecting on the killings that have been taking place, specifically of women. Allow me to start with you, Manyasi, on action, again, that needs to be done or taken. And, of course, also focusing on the question of mental health in this country.
So there are many things that have been going on in this country, and the level, and it even trickles down from the politics that we are seeing. The level of tolerance is almost completely diminished. So people cannot have a sober conversation. People cannot disagree and move on. So we are getting to a point where if you're the weaker in the argument or in the disagreement, then you're likely to be taken out. And see, that's the tragedy of what we are dealing with. So it doesn't, so beyond, even before we go to the mental health, just the mere fact that people are being killed, or someone is hiring someone to kill someone, or someone is traveling 200 kilometers to go kill someone. So that is cause for alarm. And there are several factors. One is that we are running a society that is intolerant, like I've said, and so we are not willing to listen to each other. Of course, our masters, who are politicians, have set the pace in terms of how not to listen to each other and how to rubbish everyone else. And secondly, there are certain aspects which I have not yet understood. One is how our legal process works. So if someone knows that if they do anything, they will actually go to jail for it, and we actually mean it. You know, we have seen people being released. For example, I was reading some newspaper about a week ago where someone took himself to the police station and admitted having killed someone, and he was released for lack of evidence. So this just we
have a system that's not working.
I think we have created a complexity even in our legal system, such that even things that are obvious, unless it's recorded, it's pictured, even when it's recorded, that recording is supposed to be questioned. So we have a serious problem when it comes to the way systems work.
One of the narratives that I've had go around is the question of the boy child. And this is to the effect that the girl child has been given room to catch up with the boy child, but nobody has given the boy child sufficient preparation for a new terrain, a new way of operating.
I would like to agree with that, but I can't, because the male privilege in this country continues to be a reality. If you go to many parts of this country, the training and the opportunity for the girl child is limited to our urban areas. The real problem, I feel, is that if you look at all the stories and of lovers murdering each other, including the murder-suicide that happened earlier this week, is
the 50-year-old.
Yes, you'll realize one thing. One, there's the undertone of finance, the undertone of how much premium is put on money in relationships and in Kenyan society, that if you give out money, then in your head you've bought a human being. And this human being should then never leave you because you own them. That is one. The second undertone that you see is the incapability to deal with emotional distress. That there is generally, for both men and women in this country, an inability to deal. And that is also driven by our Instagram-led lives, because in Kenya, everyone is doing fine. Every marriage is okay, every person has matching kitenges, and you in your house are the only one who's suffering. Now, that is made worse because we are a society that does not talk about its problems, and even worse, we don't solve those problems. So a lot of the time in marriages, in relationships, when people are in distress, there's no one to talk to. In fact, the biggest job you have when your marriage is in distress is hiding the fact that it is in distress rather than dealing with the distress. That is the biggest job that you have. So that when you are hiding the pain that you have, then what happens is the pressure then mounts. And when you are in pain, the options available become very limited. So the problem with Kenyan society is simply that we do not have the infrastructure to support people. And then let's also remember that this is a country where divorce is unacceptable. If you get divorced, you'll be traumatized for the rest of your life, because people will brand you a divorcee. If a lady or a man is single beyond the age of 32, we keep telling you what is wrong with you. So people would rather stay in this poisonous, hazardous environment than risk the branding of being known as a divorcee or someone who was left. So when you create such a situation, and these people are basically venomous to each other, and you stew that for a while, then what's going to come out is quite dangerous. And then also remember that no one wants to be branded that huyo bibi yake alichukuliwa, or huyo husband snatcher. You know, all those words that come around relationships, they are all negative. And also, we keep congratulating people for surviving in marriage for 50 years. No one ever asks if these 50 years have been happy.
I've been happy.
It's
All right,
that you've existed.
We'll need to get solutions, but let me hear from Ruth as a lady on the panel, and the fact that women are being attacked. What do you think is the root of all this? Because they're definitely, as much as we have men who've also been killed, there is definitely a very huge number, a significant number of women as compared to men.
Yes, in fact, the statistics right now stand at 40 reported cases on media of women who have been killed. And for me, I think the source of this, the cause of these killings is we live in a society of young people who are dealing with mental health issues that they don't even know they are dealing with. That a lot of young people are undergoing depression, and they don't even know that they are actually undergoing depression. And you see, the thing about depression is that when you hit, when you finally hit the last nail where now you can't do it, you know, you cannot survive, or very small provocation causes you to act in ways that you cannot imagine, causes you to kill someone, you know, just by a mere provocation. So we are having a society of young people who are dealing with depression, who are dealing with mental health issues that have been undiagnosed. And it is also because our culture and our society does not allow us to talk about mental issues freely. It doesn't allow us to actually check ourselves into hospital when we feel that we have been moody, we have been sad for a very long time, when we feel we are totally unmotivated, our bodies cannot work. We don't have a culture that allows us to just walk into a hospital and check ourselves in. And the cause of this mental issues stems from very many reasons that you can give, and one of them being that our family and societal foundations. You know, we have a lot of young people who grow up in families where the theme is rejection. We have young people who have been rejected from the time they were young. Fathers and mothers who tell them they're not good enough. You know, fathers who are absentee fathers, and so they don't grow up in an environment where love is, you know, where they are fed with love, where they receive the love that is necessary to have them grow up as confident human beings. So when we grow up being rejected as young kids, as teenagers, we don't know how to deal with rejection, you know, in life. So when we are rejected, our immediate and instant reaction is to kill the person who has rejected us. So I think it's a variety of so many issues. And the other issue also is that we have normalized and legitimized these killings. You know, it has become such a norm. When somebody kills somebody with an axe, we as Kenyans take on social media and turn it into a joke. Instead of vehemently condemning the act, we turn it into a joke, we make jokes out of it, and therefore we enable other people who think, when society does not vilify you, when society does not condemn you for your action, when society makes a joke out of it, then anybody else who would want to act in the same manner would feel justified, would be like, you know what, either way, society, nobody will vilify me, nobody will condemn me, people will make a joke out of it, and that would be it. We don't see, and the consequences for these actions are no longer dire, I mean, I would sit down and think of the amount of emotional heartache I have undergone and compare it to the fact that I might spend just 10 years in jail and start thinking and saying, either way, I'll weigh between the two, and I'll be like, either way, being in jail for 9-10 years, I'll be released, and the case will either disappear for lack of evidence, and so I'll go ahead and commit the crime and kill the person, knowing that, I will not face as dire consequences as I should. And
Yeah, right. And we really need to get to the bottom of it. Maybe solutions. I don't know whether our churches, our social structures, our community system has let us down. Manyasi, your thoughts and your closing, maybe just to close on this before we get to the last thing that we can talk about today.
Yeah, it's good you asked that. So one of the things that we need to realize is that our social structures have shifted. So the way we used to have aunties and grandmothers and neighbors being responsible for everybody. So you could have walked on the road, for example, and anybody will have stopped you to tell you that you can't do that.
Right.
That has now gone. Kids in school have the right to question their teachers. That never used to happen. So parents had a responsibility of their children. That is no longer possible. So you have even homes where children tell their parents what they want to do, not the other way around. So because societal structures that were created by our forefathers have collapsed, we need to create new structures that actually deal with the emerging issues. So if you're raising a child who is not even, whose parents cannot say anything to, whose neighbor, if a neighbor attempted to say anything, then it becomes a backlash from the parents. So once that is not there, we need to create new structures where, for example, in schools, do we have guiding and counseling teachers who are trained, who can actually talk to the kids? That does not exist. In my view, you have teachers who are trained to do what they were trained to do, not to guide any kids in terms of what they... So we need to create more structures to deal with the dissenting views, to deal with people who can vent, so that you have someone to talk to.
Okay, and I want us to conclude, so I'll give you a chance for your closing remarks. Each, Mark Bichachi, since you have the pastor's mic, it looks like today you are the pastor. The Bible tells us in Proverbs, train up a child in the way that they should grow, and when they have not grown, they will not depart from it. Yes. Are we training our children in the way that they should grow? Are they not departing from what they have been trained to do?
Now that you've told me to do pastoring, let me pastor that. Let me pastor that verse. You see, it says, train up a child in the way he should go, not in the way he should not go. A lot of parenting is based on don't do. It actually needs to be based on where is he going. Train up the child for where they're going, so when they get there, they know what to do. That's what that scripture actually means. And the problem that we have in Kenyan society is we have not trained children in what they should do. This, the Americans call it helicopter parenting or bulldozing parenting, where your kamama and kababa never face any problems. So what happens is as they grow, they do not know how to deal with the rejection, because even when they came last in class, they were given a certificate of participation. When they failed, you told them, good boy, well done, baba. And you then did not train them to deal with problems. You did not train them to deal with rejection. You did not train them to deal with the fact that sometimes this world will give you a curveball. And that's where we need to start. We need to train people to realize that life does not always go your own way. The second thing that I want to say briefly, in 20 seconds or less, is that we need to build a society where it is okay to be divorced, it is okay to be left, and it is also okay to be single at 40. It is the fear of being alone and being single in this country that is leading to double murders. It's leading to killing people who have left you, because you cannot imagine how society will treat you when you're alone.
All right, Ruth, I'll give you the last word. Let me hear from Anyasi first.
Yeah, so just to carry on from what Bichachi is saying, as society shifts, as things change, as we become modernized, as we move in the next about 12 years, almost 40% of the population will be living in urban areas. So that means that we have to contend with the fact that things are changing. And certain things will also go with it. As society develops, one thing you realize about the West, for example, is almost a third of the marriages end up in divorce. Those are things that we'll actually be contending with. And as a society, we need to choose our battles. What are the things that we need to get away from? What are the things? I'm not saying people need to divorce now. I'm just saying that society will be shifting towards people having to disagree on very small things and walk away on each other. But what we have not done as a society is we have not trained ourselves to disagree and move on. For us, we do not disagree, and if we disagree, then we deal with it.
And I guess even our political class is a classic example.
Exactly.
You do not disagree and move on. Ruth, you get the last word.
We are a society that has no room for inquisitiveness and questions. From the time you're a child, you ask questions, you're told, in fact, you're warned, do not ask questions. So from the word go, we create an environment where it is not okay to be free, it is not okay to express yourself, it is not okay to, to express your displeasure as a child. And so even as you're training up these children, even as you're you're endeavoring to instill values in them, there is already a culture and an environment where they're not free to talk about what they are going through. And that is why you even find children who are raised up in the most upright of manners, or as their parents would want you to believe that they gave these children the right foundation, or they think they gave these children the right foundation. They come and discover later that, their child is involved in crime, the child is a drug dealer, their child is a thief, their child is a murderer. It is because there is no open environment, there is no open culture or an open society where we can talk about what is going on. So even as we are training up these children, we are training them, yes, but we are instilling fear in them. We are not allowing for an environment for us to express ourselves as children when we are growing up as teenagers, to ask the questions that we need to ask, to have an open environment where I can come to my mother and tell her, you know what, this is what I am going through in my relationship, and my mother can tell me, walk away. So there is no free environment to talk. So even as we are training them up, it is efforts in, but then there is no output.
Thank you very much. We'll have to wind it up right there. Ruth Ambogo, who's a governance expert. We also have Mark Bichachi, a governance consultant, and Alex Manyasi, governance consultant as well. And that's the week that was. But do stay with us. We're taking a break. But when we come back, we still have more lined up for you. Remember, we're coming to you live from